The London hammer. Picture a quiet creek bed in rural Texas. Limestone scattered like broken bones under the sun. And inside one unremarkable rock, something that should not exist. A hammer. Not symbolic. Not ceremonial. A plain iron hammer with a wooden handle. The kind you'd expect in a 19th century toolbox. Except this one was found in 1936, locked inside a solid mass of stone dated to nearly 100 million years ago. Cretaceous limestone. The age of dinosaurs. Let that settle for a moment. According to the original account, Max and Emma Hahn noticed a strange rock with a fragment of wood jutting out. They took it home, set it aside, and thought little of it. Years later, their son split the stone open. Inside was the hammerhead, perfectly shaped, unmistakably man-made. Even stranger, the surrounding rock reportedly contained marine fossils associated with the Cretaceous period. Fossils that predate humans by an unfathomable margin. But the hammer itself deepens the mystery. Metallurgical testing revealed an iron purity of over 96%, mixed with trace chlorine and sulfur. Almost no carbon. That alone raises eyebrows. Iron this pure doesn't occur naturally, and modern steelmaking usually leaves a carbon signature behind. Yet here it was, clean, uniform, and highly resistant to corrosion. A notch filed into the metal nearly a century ago still hasn't rusted. No pitting, no decay, just iron that refuses to age. So what are we actually looking at? Skeptics argue the answer is simple. They say the stone isn't ancient limestone at all, but a concretion, a mineral shell that can form relatively quickly around buried objects. In that version of the story, the hammer is likely a 19th century miner's tool, dropped, forgotten, and slowly encased by mineral-rich water. A reasonable explanation. But does it explain the reported fossils? Or the anomalous metal composition? Or why this object continues to defy corrosion decade after decade? That's the tension at the heart of the London hammer. It never fully commits to either side. Not proof of lost civilizations. Not easily dismissed as a hoax. Just a tool, trapped in time, sitting uncomfortably between geology and history. And if something this ordinary can raise questions this big, what happens when the artifact isn't ordinary at all? The Caso artifact. Imagine the high desert of California. Wind-carved mountains. Rust-colored earth. A place where nothing about the landscape suggests advanced technology. In 1961, 3 amateur rock collectors were hunting for geodes in the Caso Mountains. Ordinary rocks. Ordinary expectations. They brought one promising stone back to their workshop and sliced it open with a diamond saw. They weren't prepared for what was inside. No crystals. No hollow cavity. Instead, a clean white porcelain cylinder. Dead center. With a narrow metal shaft running through it, gleaming as if it had been machined yesterday. When X-rays were taken, they reportedly revealed a tiny internal spring. It looked unmistakably familiar. A spark plug. But the casing around it wasn't modern concrete or dirt. It was a hardened, clay-like shell, surrounded by material described as fossilized shells. A geologist who examined the formation allegedly dated it to at least 500,000 years old. 500,000 years. At that point in human history, our ancestors were shaping crude stone tools. And yet here was something resembling 20th century engineering, sealed inside what appeared to be ancient rock. The story exploded. The Caso artifact became a favorite example for ancient astronaut theorists and lost technology advocates. The implications were intoxicating. If the dating was correct, then someone, human or otherwise, was manufacturing precision components long before recorded civilization even began. But then the mystery fractured. The artifact didn't stay available for study. After being displayed briefly in the late 1960s, it vanished. No secure chain of custody. No modern scans. No definitive testing with today's tools. And skeptics stepped in. They argue that geode wasn't ancient at all, but a concretion, an iron-rich nodule that can form relatively quickly. The object inside, they say, closely matches a champion spark plug from the 1920s, commonly used in mining equipment across that very region. Dropped. Buried. Slowly encased. A far less dramatic explanation. But without the artifact itself, no one can settle the debate. No one can confirm the dating. No one can re-examine the materials, which leaves us with an uncomfortable question. Was the Caso artifact a misidentified piece of forgotten machinery, or a glimpse of technology that arrived impossibly early, then disappeared without a trace? The Piri Reis map. Maps are meant to reflect the limits of human knowledge. Coastlines we've explored, lands we've seen with our own eyes. But one map refuses to stay within those limits. In 1929, archivists working inside Istanbul's Topkapi Palace uncovered an old parchment drawn on gazelle skin. It was dated to 1513 and signed by an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis. At first glance, it looked impressive, but not impossible. Europe, North Africa, the eastern edge of South America, all rendered with an accuracy that shouldn't exist for the early 16th century. Brazil's coastline, in particular, was drawn with a precision that rivaled maps made centuries later. But the real shock was hiding at the bottom. A landmass stretching east to west. Cold, vast, and strangely familiar. According to some researchers, the map appears to show the northern coastline of Antarctica, and not as we know it today, but as it looks beneath the ice. No glaciers, no frozen barrier, just exposed land contours that closely resemble Antarctica's subglacial topography. Here's the problem. Those underground coastlines weren't mapped until 1958, using seismic echo sounding. Antarctica itself wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and yet this map predates both by centuries. Piri Reis claimed his work was a compilation, more than 20 older source maps. Some, he said, dated back to the era of Alexander the Great. One was even rumored to have belonged to Christopher Columbus. That claim lit a fuse. Professor Charles Hapgood famously proposed that the map preserved fragments of knowledge from a lost prehistoric seafaring civilization, one capable of mapping the globe before Antarctica froze over, thousands of years ago. A forgotten age of exploration, a civilization erased by time, surviving only through copied fragments. Mainstream cartographers push back hard. They argue the southern landmass isn't Antarctica at all, but Terra Australis Incognita, a mythical continent long imagined by ancient geographers. Others say it's simply a distorted extension of South America, stretched to fit the parchment. But the resemblance to Antarctica's hidden coastline remains unsettlingly close. Too close to ignore. Too strange to fully explain. So was the Piri Reis map the product of educated guesswork and coincidence? Or does it preserve echoes of a world map humanity was never supposed to remember? And if ancient maps can challenge our timeline, what happens when the evidence isn't drawn on parchment, but carved into stone? The Quimbaya airplanes. Deep inside the Gold Museum of Bogotá, behind glass and security, sit a handful of tiny golden objects that refuse to behave like art. They were crafted by the Quimbaya culture around 100 AD. Officially, they're described as stylized birds or insects. Symbolic, decorative, harmless. But look closer. Each piece is only a couple of inches long, yet the shape is unmistakable. A central fuselage, swept, delta-shaped wings, and a vertical tail fin rising cleanly from the rear. These aren't features you find on birds. They look engineered. In fact, they look like jets. No known insect or animal in the region shares this configuration. And that's what caught the attention of two German aeronautical engineers in the 1990s, Peter Belting and Konrad Lubbers. Instead of debating symbolism, they did something practical. They built scale models, enlarged replicas, fitted with engines and radio controls. And when they tested them, the models didn't wobble or crash. They flew. Clean lift, stable flight, controlled movement. That result ignited a wave of speculation. Did the Quimbaya people witness advanced aircraft? Did they inherit knowledge of aerodynamics from a lost civilization? Or were they experimenting with flight themselves, 1,000 years before the Wright brothers ever left the ground? Archaeologists urge caution. They argue the figures are abstract representations, possibly flying fish or stingrays. Quimbaya art, they say, is often stylized and symbolic, not literal. And the fact that a modern model can fly is just coincidence. But that explanation hits turbulence. Flying fish don't have vertical tail fins. Stingrays don't have fuselages. And stability surfaces like these aren't decorative, they're functional. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Are these just artistic curiosities that happen to mimic aerodynamic design? Or are they miniature echoes of flying machines from a chapter of history we no longer recognize? And if ancient cultures understood the sky better than we think, what other impossible technologies might still be hiding in plain sight? The Saqqara bird. Let's follow the trail of ancient flight to Egypt. In 1898, archaeologists excavating a tomb at Saqqara uncovered a small wooden object, carefully carved and surprisingly precise. It was dated to around 200 BC and quietly stored in the Cairo Museum, labeled simply as a model bird. And for decades, no one questioned it. Until 1969. That's when Egyptologist Khalil Messi took a closer look and realized this was no ordinary bird at all. Because birds don't look like this. The wings weren't decorative. They were shaped like airfoils, curved in a way designed to generate lift. The wings angled slightly upward from the body, forming a dihedral angle, something modern aircraft use to maintain stability in flight. And then there was the tail. Not horizontal feathers. Not fan plumage. A vertical tail fin. Like a rudder. That detail alone stopped people in their tracks. Suddenly, the object looked less like a toy and more like a scale model of a glider. An engineered form. Intentional. Purposeful. The questions came fast. Could the ancient Egyptians have understood the principles of aerodynamics? Could they have experimented with gliders more than 2,000 years ago? To test the idea, researchers built a full-scale replica. It flew. Not briefly. Not by accident. It glided smoothly and efficiently through the air. That result reignited the debate. Some suggested the Saqqara bird was ceremonial, a symbolic representation of flight or the soul's journey through the heavens. Others went further, proposing it may have been a model for a man-carrying glider, something lost to time and sand. Mainstream scholars remain unconvinced. They argue it's a weather vane or a ritual object, and that its aerodynamic qualities are coincidence. They point out the lack of supporting evidence. No ancient texts describing flight. No larger aircraft remains. Nothing else to confirm the idea. But the object itself refuses to be dismissed. Its design aligns too neatly with the physics of flight. Too many features work together. Too many choices feel deliberate. So was the Saqqara bird just a whimsical carving? Or a quiet admission that the ancient Egyptians once understood the sky far better than we're willing to admit? And if they did, what other knowledge has been misfiled, boxed away, and forgotten? The Dendera Lights. Deep beneath the temple of Hathor at Dendera, far from sunlight and ceremony, there is a crypt where the walls tell a very different story. Carved into the stone are scenes that have fueled one of the most heated debates in all of Egyptology. Figures stand holding what appear to be enormous glass bulbs. Pear-shaped, transparent, sealed at one end. Inside each one, a long, serpent-like form stretches from base to tip, exactly where a filament should be. At the base of the bulb, the image connects to a lotus flower. From there, a cable-like line runs to a box resembling a jed pillar, an ancient symbol associated with stability and power. Put it all together, and the scene feels unsettlingly familiar. To some researchers, it looks less like mythology and more like a schematic. A primitive electrical system carved in stone. The bulb resembles a Crookes tube, an early form of cathode ray device, with the serpent acting as a glowing plasma filament. This interpretation leads to an obvious question. If the ancient Egyptians had a form of electric lighting, it would explain a long-standing mystery. Why the ceilings of many tombs and underground chambers show little to no soot. Torches should have left blackened stone behind. Electric light wouldn't. But Egyptologists push back hard. They argue the scene is purely symbolic. A religious narrative, not a technological diagram. According to this view, the snake represents the god Harsamtis, born from the lotus flower. The bulb is the womb of the sky goddess Nut. The connecting line is the solar bark of the sun god, Ra. In other words, myth, not machinery. And yet, the carvings are strangely precise. Too consistent. too mechanical in appearance. The proportions, the repetition, the way the elements interconnect, it all feels deliberate, which leaves the question hanging in the dark. Are the Dendera reliefs nothing more than misunderstood religious art? Or do they hint that the ancient Egyptians discovered a form of electricity thousands of years before modern science claims it was possible? And if light itself was once mastered, what other ancient technologies might be hiding in the shadows of stone? The Baigong Pipes. High on the Tibetan Plateau, in China's Qinghai province, rises a strange, pyramid-shaped mountain known as Mount Baigong. The landscape is harsh, isolated, almost untouched, and at the base of this mountain, history breaks down. Inside a cave carved into the rock, thick metal pipes emerge from the ceiling and plunge deep into the mountain itself. Some of them are nearly half a meter wide. They aren't random fragments. They're embedded, fixed, purposeful. Step outside, and the mystery spreads. More iron pipes snake along the shores of the nearby Tosan Lake. Dozens of them, some broken, some intact, all seemingly arranged, as if part of a larger system. Then came the dating. Using thermoluminescence techniques, researchers estimated the pipes to be around 150,000 years old. Not 1,500, not 15,000, 150,000. At that point in time, modern humans didn't exist. Metallurgy was unimaginable. No furnaces, no tools, no known culture capable of producing refined iron. So who built them? And why? Speculation filled the vacuum. One theory, surprisingly promoted by local authorities, suggested the site might be the remains of an ancient alien installation, possibly even a launch platform. Geologists offered alternatives. They proposed the pipes could be the result of natural processes. Iron-rich magma channels, mineral deposits forming around ancient tree roots, geological quirks mistaken for engineering. But those explanations struggle with one detail: organization. The pipes aren't scattered randomly. They intersect. They align. They penetrate rock in ways that feel intentional. And despite multiple studies, no explanation has fully closed the case, which leaves Mount Baigong suspended between science and speculation. Are these pipes a rare geological illusion, or the corroded remains of a technology so ancient it predates everything we thought we knew about human capability? And if metal existed before metallurgy, what else might the Earth be quietly hiding beneath its surface? The Wolfseg Iron. In 1885, deep inside a coal mine in Wolfseg, Austria, a miner split open a block of coal and found something that didn't belong there. Embedded inside was a metal object. Small, heavy, almost cube-shaped, made of iron, and carved with a clean, deliberate groove running precisely around its middle, as if it had been machined. The coal surrounding it was estimated to be at least 20 million years old. That alone made the discovery explosive. The object, later called the Wolfseg Iron or the Salzburg Cube, was sent to a local museum and quickly became a lightning rod for debate. This wasn't a natural formation. The angles were too sharp, the incision too exact. Whatever it was, it had been shaped by intelligence. Tests revealed it wasn't a meteorite. The iron lacked the nickel content typical of extraterrestrial material. That meant it was terrestrial and manufactured, which created a problem. No known civilization was working iron anywhere near that far back in time. As the years passed, a more grounded explanation emerged. Some researchers suggested the object wasn't a perfect cube at all, but a piece of iron ballast used in early mining machinery. In this version of events, younger coal deposits may have collapsed into older geological layers, carrying the object with them. An accident of stratigraphy, not an ancient mystery. But the case never fully settled, because the original artifact vanished. Sometime in the early 20th century, the Wolfseg Iron disappeared from the Salzburg Museum. All that remains today are plaster casts, copies of a copy, stripped of the material clues that modern science could analyze. Without the original, the truth is locked away. Was it a mundane fragment of mining equipment, its story exaggerated by time? Or a manufactured object entombed millions of years before it should have existed? And if artifacts can simply disappear, How many answers have already slipped through our fingers? The Kingoody hammer. Our journey into impossible artifacts takes us to Scotland. In the 18th century, a quarryman was splitting a massive block of sandstone near the village of Kingoody when he uncovered something extraordinary. Embedded perfectly within the stone was an iron hammer. The sandstone itself came from a formation dating to the Devonian period, roughly 400 million years ago. To put that in perspective, this was the era when the first amphibians were taking tentative steps onto land. Humans wouldn't appear for hundreds of millions of years. Yet here was a manufactured iron tool, frozen in stone. The discovery was documented by the renowned physicist Sir David Brewster. He described a hammerhead about 3.5 inches long, with a fragment of the wooden handle still attached, though carbonized over time. The rock had to be carefully chiseled away to reveal it. A 400-million-year-old hammer. According to everything we know about history and metallurgy, it shouldn't exist. What's the explanation? As with many of these artifacts, the original is lost. Skeptics suggest the story may have been exaggerated, or even fabricated. Perhaps a modern hammer fell into a crack, and the tale grew with retelling. But if the reports were accurate, the implications are staggering. A technologically advanced civilization coexisting with primitive life forms, far earlier than any known timeline allows. The Kingoody hammer, lost to time, leaves us with a tantalizing question. How much of history has been erased, and what other impossible tools might still be hidden in the rock? The Dorchester pot. Our final artifact seems to come from a time that defies imagination. In 1852, Scientific American reported a startling discovery in Dorchester, Massachusetts. During a blasting operation, a small metallic pot was blasted free from solid rock. The pot was bell-shaped, about 4.5 inches tall, made of a zinc-silver alloy, and decorated with intricate floral patterns inlaid with pure silver. Beautiful, delicate, impossible. The rock it came from, the Roxbury conglomerate, was estimated to be around 600 million years old. 600 million. This was the Ediacaran period, long before the Cambrian explosion, when life on Earth was limited to soft-bodied organisms barely able to leave a trace. A civilization capable of metallurgy at that time? Beyond comprehension. Unsurprisingly, the Dorchester pot became a rallying point for those questioning the conventional timeline of human history. Skeptics offer a simpler explanation. They argue the pot closely resembles a Victorian-era pipe holder. They suggest it wasn't actually embedded in the rock at all, but was caught in the debris from the blast. Witnesses may have assumed it came from the stone itself. Like so many of these mysterious artifacts, the Dorchester pot has vanished. No museum records. No modern analysis. Only the 19th century report remains. So what was it? A misplaced trinket, a misreported find, or a genuine relic from a time so far in the Earth's past that we can't even imagine who, or what, might have crafted it? It's a puzzle that may never be solved. A final, tantalizing hint that history, as we know it, could be far stranger than we dare to believe. If these artifacts have taught us anything, it's that history is far stranger and far more mysterious than we've been told. From hammers frozen in stone to ancient maps that challenge everything we know, the past is whispering secrets we've barely begun to hear. If you're fascinated by the impossible, the unexplained, and the untold stories that make us question reality itself, subscribe to Strange Wise and join us on a journey through the mysteries that history doesn't want you to know. Hit the bell icon, because every week, we uncover the artifacts, discoveries, and enigmas that blur the line between fact and legend. And if you enjoyed exploring the impossible today, give this video a like and share it. Let's see how many minds we can open to the strange, hidden truths of our world. After all, the past may not be finished telling its story,